My name is Diane Ream. I'm the program director here at Oasis House. I've been with Oasis House since its existence, since praying in the parking lot about where our next venture in ministry would be. And so through this ministry, just building relationships with women that have no hope and being able to give them hope, and just letting them know how much they are loved and how much God loves them and what a precious treasure they are. And so it's just building relationships with the women, letting them know the things that have been done to them in their past does not define who they are or the purpose that God has for their life. It's just letting them know the things that was done in their childhood years was not a normal family life. For instance, we have a young lady who is 28 years old. She called here, and it took a whole year for her to come in to physically walk through the doors. And so previously, through that year before she came, we would talk on the phone, but she just couldn't bring herself to come through the doors. And so once she did, the first day she came, I was on vacation, so I didn't get a chance to meet her the very first day she ended up coming through the doors. But then the following week I had an opportunity to meet her, and she's just an amazing young woman who has so much strength and desire to give back. And her dream is to be a vet tech. She loves animals. And so that's the dream that she's pursuing. And so just getting to know her and hearing her story and the horrific things that was done to her since she was 3 years old, and just letting her know that that's not a normal family life. I took a few of the ladies to my house for a Thanksgiving dinner, and just afterwards, they were just amazed that no one argued, no one got arrested, no one tried to hit on them. And so just letting them know that there are families that love and care about each other, and from all the dysfunction that they come from. So it's just really building a relationship and letting them know how much they are loved. It's so sad that no one ever encourages them or tells them that they are doing a good job, or that the small steps that they make are great steps just to keep stepping. So it's really just building relationships with the women.
I'm Cheryl Oliver. I'm the Executive Director of Oasis House in Dayton, Ohio. And at Oasis House, we help women who've been exploited by human trafficking and prostitution and other means of sexual exploitation. We started out 12 years ago, actually, on the North Dixie Strip here in Dayton. And what we were doing was going into the strip clubs and ministering to women there and taking a hot home-cooked meal. And we are a faith-based organization, and so the women began calling us the church ladies. But they call us that fondly now because many times we're their only safe, supportive network. And so we still do that. However, human trafficking and the topic of human trafficking has grown immensely over the last 7 or 8 years. And it's something that's always happened, but now it has a label. And we didn't know when we first started doing this that human trafficking was occurring. We thought that we were just helping women who were being exploited and maybe self-exploiting themselves in strip clubs. Well, now we realize that that's not the case. And we've learned a lot over the years. And so we began getting to know women and finding out what took them to the place of of being an exotic dancer in a strip club. And for many, we found that the old adage of, oh, they're just going to, do this for a while they're working their way through college is not usually the case. It can be in small cases, but not usually. So, but what happened initially and how we ended up doing this was that Pastor Sharon Amos, who's the original founder of Oasis House, and a team of women that she was working with, had been doing ministry somewhere else at the other end of the North Dixie Strip helping women. And that housing project where they were working came down. So it was like a birthing process, because Pastor Sharon and her team began to pray for 9 months. And at the end, this woman just one Sunday walked into Pastor Sharon's church and said, I wasn't raised in church. I don't know anything about church, but I feel like I'm supposed to be here. She didn't look like everybody else. She didn't dress like everybody else. And her story was so compelling as she began to tell this story about literally being born to a mother who was a bartender in a strip club. The dad was the manager, and she literally grew up in that environment. And so she naturally fell right in the path and the footsteps of the other individuals that she was surrounded by all of the time. So by the time she came to see Pastor Sharon, she was a full-blown escort, running an escort service, and actually what we now know as trafficking other women to be sexually exploited, to be prostituted. And we use that word prostituted a lot because we've heard story after story after story over the years where a child was 2 years old when her dad first sexually assaulted her, or a neighbor, or someone else, and then they ended up in foster care and they were sexually exploited and abused there. Incestual activity happened. Just horrific stories about women and their upbringing. And so when you don't know any better, and all of a sudden you're 18 and that's what you're doing, and you find yourself on the wrong side of the law, then there's an issue with that, because someone should have reached out a long time ago and helped her and rescued her, but it didn't happen. And so now she's being arraigned, for solicitation and prostitution charges. She's hooked up now with an individual who claims to care for her and will take care of her, and it can be a male most often. We call that the Romeo effect. It can also be what we call a bottom, which is a female who maybe she was his original girlfriend, and now she's the one who's out reining in and bringing other females and males as well into the fold to be lured and trafficked and prostituted. So Oasis House started out there in the strip clubs, and we would take a hot home cooked meal in to the women on a Wednesday night. We would also get to know them and develop a relationship with them and let them know that there was hope. And so for many, it's hard to believe that there's hope when all that you've known all of your life is abuse. Now that's the original story. I want to tell you now, though, that this has no boundaries. Human trafficking doesn't have walls of socioeconomic birthright. And so human trafficking, because of the heroin epidemic in our communities, is rampant. Now every socioeconomic community has this problem lurking at their front door. It doesn't hide, and it doesn't. It does take prisoners. It does take prisoners, and so we are working hard and steadfast now to provide programming for women. At Oasis House, we have a partnership with Wright State School of Medicine, and we have a psychiatrist who is here once a week to help with the deep-rooted mental health issues that women have. We also have 2 other counselors. One deals with the traumatic brain injury issues that women who've been involved in sexually exploited circumstances and trafficking, they have this brain injury because most men are right-handed, and when they hit a woman, they usually hit them in the left lobe, the left front lobe of the brain. And when that happens, all of this brain damage occurs, and it messes with an individual's logic model. And so when you say she has a choice, I'm here to tell you she doesn't have a choice. She can't make a good logical decision for herself when that happens. And when you've been raised in that situation, and that's all you know, how can you perceive or believe that there's anything better in life for you other than the hand that you were dealt? So there are a lot of dynamics going on. We have the generational curse. We have the nuances now with the heroin epidemic, and it being trafficking and heroin now going hand in hand in every community in every part of the country. And in the state of Ohio, unfortunately, we have this interstate system, 70 and 75, and up north around Toledo, 75 leads into Michigan, which leads directly into Canada. It's easy to transport individuals across state lines. But let me tell you first that for human trafficking, none of those situations have to happen. Force, fraud, or coercion are the 3 words, the 3 items that define what human trafficking is. And so if you have any of those involved, any one of those, and it usually starts with coercion. Oh, I'll be your boyfriend. Oh, I'll be your friend. And then the force begins. And so then they begin to force you, and you're defrauded time after time after time into believing that if you don't do what you're told to do, that your life will be threatened. You suffer physical abuse, mental anguish, the threat of a family member being killed, a whole ramification of different things. So with all of that in mind, we no longer believe that it's a choice. We believe it is the oldest oppression, not the world's oldest profession, but the world's oldest oppression. And we see it now as the 2nd largest global moneymaker in the world at $42 billion a year annually. That's just for sex trafficking. Human trafficking globally is $400 billion a year. That includes labor trafficking, sex trafficking, domestic servitude, $400 billion a year. The sale of drugs, when I first got into this business about 9 years ago, was $72 billion a year. And now, today, it's tied hands with sex trafficking. And alone, those 2 tied together are $199 billion a year. So it is horrific. And at Oasis House, in addition to the partnership with Wright State for a psychiatrist, we again have that trauma-informed care specialist. We also have another general counselor who deals with everyday therapeutic issues with women. We offer a YES mentoring program, and we don't do it just here at Oasis House. We do it at 3 other locations in the Miami Valley. And the YES mentoring program is something that was established in the early days of Oasis House. And we've revamped it a bit over the years, and it helps women to understand that they can have hope and that they can have a safe place to be. And so that mentoring table is where women from middle class or all socioeconomic backgrounds come together with the women that we serve at Oasis House, and they develop natural relationships. And so the woman, the survivor of human trafficking, now has somebody that she can trust and develop a relationship with that's healthy and whole and is productive in helping her to assume her role in the community as a viable human being that has goals and ambitions and can become healthy. So we also offer art and art therapy for women, because those that can't share their experiences verbally do it through the means of art, and it's very gratifying to them. And our halls here are lined with their artwork and some of the things they've done over the years. We also do life development skills. We're working on Bridges Out of Poverty development model with a circle that comes around the women and helps them to know how to balance a checkbook, know how to seek help and become safe in their own skin. And when they're tempted to use drugs or to go back to the lifestyle, that they have an advocate there that helps them and trains them and gives them skill sets to not break that partnership with themselves. So they're learning to be good parents. They're learning how to manage a household. And we think those things are super important before they get a job, because money isn't the answer. You have to have certain skill sets and certain life development skills in place before all of that can become possible. And then if you have a paycheck, then you know how to manage it. And you know how to pay your bills, and you know how to be a responsible parent. So we do all of that. We also operate a safe house for women. Right now we have 3 beds. But as I'm speaking to you, we're in the process of putting a bid on another house that will potentially house 7 more women. And so we're very excited about that. There is a huge need in our community and in communities all through the state of Ohio, Southwest Ohio. And there are many opportunities for people to get involved in that. People want to know what they can do. First of all, go tell this story. Tell this story to people and help them to understand that this just isn't a choice that someone decides one day to go out, as a little girl and decides, instead of being a fairy princess, I want to go be a prostitute. I want to be a trafficked individual. I want to have no control over my life. Nobody grows up saying that. Nobody. And so you can be an advocate for her. You can be her voice. You can go out and speak to others and tell them, this is what I used to think, that it was a choice, but now I know differently. And there are many personal stories. We have stories of women that will tell us that they were fed gasoline, they were ordered to eat their own feces, and now they have horrific life-sustaining health issues, physical health issues because of it, not to mention all of the emotional damage that's been done. And so it takes years to undo this programming, this way of life that they've always known. Normally it would have taken 5 to 7 years, but now that we have the heroin epidemic, it's taking much longer. And so we do need people for a variety of things: mentoring, advocating, helping us restore a house where women can go and live, collecting items for our street outreach program, where we actually go to the streets and meet women where they are. We go into the clubs, so there's still that outreach. There are any number of ways that individuals can get involved with us. And we look forward to telling our story, to come and doing trainings and about human trafficking, but also a closer look at the victim. And we call them victims initially because they have been victimized, but we are growing survivors here at Oasis House. And that is our goal, is to feed into a woman the love of Christ and to let her know that somebody does care about her. Somebody is willing to invest time in her. Somebody thinks that she's worthwhile, because if I'm worthwhile, why shouldn't she be? And so that's who we are at Oasis House. We are in the therapeutic drug docket for women here, advocating for women here in Montgomery County. We are in the Dayton Correctional Institute for Women. We are in the Montgomery County Substance Transitional Offender Program and the county jail. We are all over the place trying to make a difference in the lives of women that most feel are cast away and throwaway. And so if I could leave you with just one thought, it would be to hear what I've said, go out and find out more about it, find out how that you can tell the story advocate for someone, and how you can get involved and help. It doesn't take a lot of money, although we are a nonprofit organization and we operate solely on individuals' contributions and some churches. We don't have any state or federal dollars. And so, of course, we would always appreciate your resources. But if you don't have financial resources, you have skill sets. You have things that you can do to make a difference in your community, with the women. Find a place. And we would just ask that you would just be passionate, that you would have a changed heart about this.